Hi, I'm Dave, founder of Halloween Year Round, and the twisted childhood Poohniverse continues with Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare. I remember when I first heard way back in early 2023 when they announced they were doing, Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey. Oh, Winnie the Pooh's public domain now, so we can make a slasher film out of it. I thought, okay, it's gimmicky, but it could work. And it did, at least in a financial sense. I mean, I'm not going to defend the first Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey. It's trashy in every way, shape, and form, but it was kind of meant to be. And then I kind of loved what they did with Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 2, where the first movie like is a movie in universe, and it had a bigger budget. They were actually able to do more with it, and it showed that they kind of just had to make the first one that way to get attention in order to make all these other movies. So now we get to Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare, and it's our first time moving in a new direction without Winnie the Pooh. We have to keep the story going. We have to go with Peter Pan. But what are you going to do with it? And what they did with it, where Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey was just like your typical slasher send off, where Winnie was kind of like a Michael Myers or a Jason Voorhees. Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare is it and the Black Phone. And I mean that in both a good way and a bad way. So let's get into it. We open with a really disturbing sequence that kind of tells you right from the get go that this is a movie that's going to put children in peril. And it's going to disturb you. It's going to be unsettling. It's going to be grotesque. And I love that it just goes for it. We are in the Terrifier era of indie horror where movies, they're not afraid to just, they can just be released unrated now through a Fathom event, or just released anyway unrated, the way Terrifier 3 was. So they can just be as gory and disturbing and messed up as they want, and they'll find their audience. And if there are people protesting outside of the theater, it kind of just helps with the publicity. So this movie, to a much higher degree, goes for that because, again, you have Peter Pan targeting children. He says he's taking them to Neverland. Without getting into spoilers, no, he's not. And at first, I was disappointed they didn't go like full fantasy supernatural with it. He is just like a man just killing people. But the longer it sat with me, the more I realized just how disturbing it was, because in his head, he believes it all. So, Peter Pan himself, I can't not mention this. He's very Pennywise. He's very Joker. He's very the grabber from the Black Phone. So much so that it almost feels like it's too derivative. Now, I get Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey was very derivative, but I think we're more, or at least I'm more willing to overlook that for a slasher, because I feel like slashers, more so than any other horror subgenre, kind of have to adhere to their formula to be a slasher. Like, we expect the formula, we expect the boxes to be checked. Whereas something that's more of like ghost horror, supernatural horror, in the vein of It or The Black Phone, that, Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare is very much going for, we kind of expect more unique execution. And I don't think it necessarily does the unique execution. That being said, that doesn't mean at all that this movie was not disturbing, entertaining, or fun. You have the Darling family. I don't think their last name's even Darling in this, but you have Wendy, and she has her brothers Jonathan and Mike. Gets kidnapped, and it's like I said, it's the Black Phone. Little boy gets kidnapped, and his older sister Wendy is on this mission to find him. We have Tinker Bell, who is a drug addict taking pixie dust. Again, it's like they thought, what's the most disturbing. It's almost like they Zack Snydered it. They're like, what would Zack Snyder do with this property? And let's do that, but dial up the horror. You even get Captain Hook, which I dare not spoil, is not exactly a pirate, and is probably more disturbing than Tinkerbell if you think about it. But Peter Pan himself, we got to talk about. Martin Portlock, the whole movie hangs on him, and he does a fantastic job. He switches between this like high-pitched whimsical voice and this really lower pitched like serial killer voice. And it's chilling the way like in just a scene he'll go back and forth between the two. That as a parent was absolutely terrifying because again, had this gone the true like fantasy supernatural route, oh, Peter Pan could have been like a demon taking them to hell or something. But the fact that he's just like abducting and killing children kind of makes it more disturbing because it's more realistic, unfortunately. We live in a world where real people have done really messed up things like this. And again, speaking as a parent, it hits close to home, especially if you've seen it, the bus scene. I'm not going to spoil it, but if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Like I'm like, "Oh my god," in my seat in the theater. It's gruesome, it's grotesque. It does everything that you would expect a movie like this to do, but I think they're getting better in terms of, like, pacing and for lack of a better phrase, making it feel like a real movie instead of like a cheap, no budget, we just threw this together movie like the first Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey feels. There's even fun little references, like in one scene, there's a kid wearing a Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey shirt, which, if you remember, in this universe, the first movie is a movie that exists. So it makes sense that you could buy a t shirt that has like the movie's poster on it. And the police officer who appeared in the Winnie the Pooh movies is also in this one. So they're building their universe. Frankly, they're taking more time than The Mummy did with Universal's Dark Universe, or they're taking more time than Warner Brothers did with the DCEU. Funny that this universe is learning from their mistakes and actually taking their time. Now, I know we've got like 8 more of these, not 8, I'm exaggerating, but we have a few more scheduled for this year. I know we got Bambi the Reckoning. I know we've got the Pinocchio one, and then I know we have like the Poohniverse Monsters Assemble, all of which right now have 2025 listed as their release year. We don't have specific dates for them, but it is only January, and Peter Pan is just kind of kicking off the year. But as far as, taking a beloved childhood property and turning it into horror, I think this did a much more creative job than, say, Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey did, where it was just, oh, let's take these characters and just make them slashers. But where's the Winnie the Pooh of it? Where's the Tigger of it? Where they're named the same as the beloved characters, and they even kind of resemble them, but they're just generic slashers. Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare, I feel like it understands the source material and it's actually trying to take elements of it and twist it into horror, but it still feels like you can see where they got the Peter Pan from. You can see where they got, the Tinkerbell and the pixie dust from. It feels like it understands and tries to incorporate its source material more than Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey ever did. So for that reason, I actually think this is the best one, but with the caveat that I don't want this style to get stale, and it's not stale yet. But if we get 3 or 4 more movies like this year, it might it might start getting diminishing returns in the near future. But we'll see. These are just my thoughts. This is just my review. I'd love to know what you thought of Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare. Let me know in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff. If you don't, you may end up going on a journey to Neverland, which is kind of creepy, not just because of this movie, but because of the Michael Jackson connotation. And as always, every day is Halloween.